So yes, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Rand Miller, and I guess thank you for the opportunity to present at this conference. I listened yesterday, and it was a great evening, and I'm sure today will be the same. Myself and Barney are part of the research team at Leeds Beckett University on the I Coach Kids project, and we're going to discuss and present today the research elements in relation to evaluating holistic talent development environments. I'm going to present just an introduction to talent identification development systems and talent development environments, and then Barney will overview some of the research that we will be doing. So I always like to start with this slide. This is from the International Olympic Committee consensus statement on youth athletic development, where they start the paper by saying the goal is clear: to develop healthy, capable and resilient young athletes while attaining widespread, inclusive, sustainable and enjoyable participation and success for all levels of individual athletic achievement. They also highlight within the paper around promoting a positive experience to youths to maximise holistic development. So this, for me, encapsulates what we're about and what I Coach Kids is about. And in relation to today, we're going to take, I guess, a focus a bit more in relation to the athlete from a talent perspective. Whereas yesterday, you focus on the second part of that statement in relation to youth sport participation. Really, we're going to look at developing healthy, capable and resilient young athletes and how we may do that holistically, and this idea around talent within that. So I guess over the last probably 20 to 30 years now, this idea of a talent identification and development system has very much become popularized, with really the main focus of these programs being around athlete success. So achieving gold medals at the Olympics or achieving success in professional sports is really one of the outcomes of being a successful athlete. And to achieve that success, this idea of talent identification development systems has very much come to the forefront in allowing that success to occur. And really, the idea of a talent identification development system is really quite simple, in that we're looking to move from what could be seen as standard practices towards these higher quality practices in relation to, I guess, the work that is done with athletes. So it's very much how we can increase the quality of the provision that's provided to athletes to allow them to be successful in the long run. Now, these talent identification development systems, there's multiple systems around the world, but really most of them follow this similar pathway. So what we can see here on the left is this idea of a normal population, normative population, which is normally the community game and the participation levels of the game, which were discussed yesterday. And then we can see this section in black, this triangle in black. And this is normally where athletes are identified within their sports to have some elements of potential to be successful in the long run. So a number of players or athletes or children and youths are identified into the system. Now, within the system, what we then see is that there is a smaller number of athletes at the initial stages, and at each stage of the system, what we see is that a smaller number of athletes are selected or identified to the next stage. And so ultimately we get to this idea where there is the professional athlete or the Olympic athlete. But this is definitely not a straight line, and we can see various arrows within this figure here in relation to withdrawal from sport, transfer in and out of systems, non-retention within systems. So it's definitely not linear, but it's really normally structured around this idea of a pyramidal type system, where we have a broad base at the bottom at the community, and really in terms of podium or professional Olympic athletes, there is few of those that achieve success. So this is the UK sport model in relation to their systems and pathways. And what we know really summarizes that as we go up this pathway, the number of opportunities as we go up the pathway decreases for the number of athletes that can be selected within that. But also the support and provision that is provided to athletes in that pathway increases as we go up. So we'd expect better facilities, higher quality coaching, more intense training and competition. And really, quite simply, that's, I guess, our a talent identification and development system works. But over the last sort of 10 to 20 years, there's been a range of research that's identified some problems with this. And I like to classify that into really two questions. The first one is, from that identification, who does or does not get these opportunities to be selected or identified into a talent identification development system? And again, there's been a range of research looking at that in some of the opportunities that exist. The second question that has then been raised in practice and the research is around, for those individuals that get identified and selected, how appropriate and how healthy are these systems? Okay, which is really into today's talk and that we're presenting in the research is where we're going to focus. And in previous work, we've identified or highlighted this idea around a talent ID and development system being a friend or foe. And we've presented previously for I Coach Kids in this, and maybe refer back to the YouTube videos in relation to that approaches this idea around whether it is a friend or a foe type system. But ultimately, it depends on the opportunities they get. So we've done some work in this, and I was lucky enough to work with Professor Joe Baker, who's going to present next in relation to a paper around the appropriateness and healthiness of these systems, where we looked at some of the challenges and possible solutions, which I'm sure Joe will touch upon. And within that within that paper, we looked at the health considerations for these systems and this idea around early specialisation, etc. So there's some existing work in relation to that. Also work from a colleague of mine at Leeds Beckett University, Dr. Fika Rongan. We started to, again, try and answer that question and look at this in relation to the impacts that occur because of being involved in these systems. And ultimately, our range of impacts can be positive or negative in a range of different areas, from physical, psychosocial, educational, etc. And in that paper, we really sort of suggested that these systems have a possibility for a wide range of positive and negative, intended and unintended, and short and long-term health and performance impacts. So children and athletes being involved in these systems, there's a range of positives and negatives from a health and performance perspective that we need to be aware of. So when we sort of ask the question around youth sport talent identification and development systems healthy, it's definitely not a yes or no answer. These systems are neither inherently good or bad, but instead their impact reflects how well they are designed, implemented and managed, so that youth athletes systematically secure positive health and holistic development outcomes. And this idea around design, implementation and managed is really what we class as a talent development environment, and how that environment can actually shape these outcomes from a health and a holistic development outcome. But we need to do more research in relation to understanding this environment to acknowledge whether, how that relates to these outcomes.